Yeah, but Obsessions made you sell tickets, and if you didn't, like, the guy was ruthless. He took advantage of you being young and like scared. You went into his shitty little office in the basement, and you're just like, "Okay, Mom, can you come bring a couple $100 so we can play with Let's Go Bowling?"
Welcome, everyone, to This Was the Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Face First, which I like. Face First was a ska punk band that formed in Mendham, New Jersey when Jarret Seltzer met Tom Chitty Keiger. They played in the NJ scene for a few years and eventually realized that ska sucks my ass and evolved into the sound that was Houston Calls. Just kidding about the ska comment there. From there, they did a shit ton of touring, signed to Drive-Thru Records on their, I guess, subsidiary Rushmore Records, and eventually disbanded in the mid-2000s. This interview is pretty incredible because Jarret is such a fucking entrepreneur, and he developed these skills at such a young age. So you're going to hear throughout the whole conversation of how I'm blown away out of all of these things he did. Like he wanted to put out records, so he started a record label, Decibel Records. He wanted to go on tour, so he created one by getting it sponsored. Like all of this crazy shit. I'm not going to give too much away, but it's really impressive. And even now he exercises those skills where he just launched Bagels by Jarret, where he creates these bagels. I guess he like twice bakes them, where he says like people can eat a ton of them. And we talk about this in the beginning of the episode. So I'm just very impressed by Jarret. He's just fucking amazing. And this interview is pretty great. It's just, I love all these interviews because there's so much new stuff that I learned, and just seeing what was going on and from different people's perspectives back then is just so fascinating to me. And I know I've said this so many times, but it really, I mean, this is like episode 73, and I'm just still blown away about how interesting all these conversations are. So I hope you enjoy this one. And yeah, but as always, I reached out to Jarret and I was like, dude, I believe we need to have a conversation. And he's like, yes, let me put down my bagels and I'll get on the phone. And then this is what we talked about. His bagels, meeting Chitty, the club obsessions, starting Decibel Records, registering with CCM just to have health insurance. That like fucking blew me away. Becoming Houston Calls, Rushmore Records, and a ton more. Again, as I mentioned, go check out his bagels at bagelsbyjarret.com. It's BAGELS by BY. JARRETT.com. This is going to lead you to a Facebook page because his actual website is launching in November, but he is planning on shipping these across country eventually. So if you're listening in somewhere that's not New Jersey, you'll be able to get these bagels. So once he launches this, then I will be ordering some bagels. Giant shout out to David Patino, who is episode 47, by the way, if you want to go learn about David. The reason I'm giving Dave a shout out is because he saved the audio for one of my upcoming episodes, which was fucking great because it's a really long episode and there was this weird sound thing, and luckily Dave's been in audio for over 2 decades, so I was like, dude, you have to fucking save my ass. And he did, and I love him, and he's great. So go support him by visiting his website, davidpatino.com, DAVIDPATINO.com. It'll also be in the show notes. And you should hire him because he's a professional photographer, so you should hire him to do your professional photography services. He doesn't do weddings because fuck that shit. And Dave found this out early in life because no one wants to give up their fucking weekends to do that crap. So go hire your friend to do that shit. That was me saying this. He didn't tell me to say that. If you do happen to hire him, just make sure you tell him that you heard about his services through this podcast so I can declare my dominance. If you'd like to sponsor the show, you can email thiswasthescene@gmail.com, and you can be in the intro, like the intro that I'm doing right now, or I can put you after the teasers that I use on Instagram that are also posted to Facebook, or you can have a spot on the website. So again, thiswasthescene@gmail.com. Thanks again for all the Patreon supporters. Just picked up a couple this week. You guys are fucking great, and it's just $1 a month. It's really helpful. It adds up, and I honestly really appreciate it. And for everyone who's given a donation, it's super fucking helpful because, again, I do work for myself and I don't have a steady income ever. I don't get a paycheck deposited into a bank account every 2 weeks. I don't have health insurance. I don't have a 401k. I'm paying off debt as everyone else. So all of this stuff helps me because I take a break from my actual paying gig to do this, which takes up a lot of hours during the week, but it's a passion project and I love it. Blah, blah, blah. No one cares. But I just figured I'd put that out there. So if you want to help out, you can just go to thiswasthescene.com and there's donate buttons and there's a Patreon button on there on the homepage. You can also help out by buying some merch that's also on thiswasthescene.com. And Christmas is coming up. So if you want to buy a loved one a shirt or a sticker or a coffee mug, or I think I have like a pillow on there, or I think that's it. You can just go there and buy them, and all proceeds go to help me still do all these episodes and spend a shit ton of time with interviews and editing and asking people to be on this and blah, blah. But you want to get to the interview, so I'm going to lead you there. Feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
Welcome to the show. I'm gonna start this professionally.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not.
Oh.
How'd the bagels go? And you're like Mr. fucking Bagel New Jersey guy.
I don't know what happened, how I got myself here, but I'm here and I have a retail space and it's being built out and there's 8,000 things to do. And there's actually probably more than 8,000 things to do if I actually put it all down on paper. It's crazy.
Well, just real quick before we get into all the punk rock bullshit, like I always saw a post where you were making them. Were you just making them at home and people were picking them up, or were you just making them and not selling them just to create demand?
No, I was making them and giving them out. So in New Jersey, it's illegal to sell baked goods out of your home. We're the only state where you can't do that. So once it started with like a pop-up shop that I did. And then once word got out, I would just, if I had a free day, I would just like make a dozen or two bagels and just give them out to people and tell them that they had to pay it forward somehow in town and they had to post a review about it. Are you hearing the obnoxious beeping that constantly is going off?
Yeah, kill that.
I'm trying to. Oh my God. All right, I'm in preferences. Play sound effects. Okay, off.
What makes your bagels different from the normal Jersey Boy or I don't know, I forget some of the bagel places in Jersey.
It's like a lighter bagel. It doesn't sit in your stomach. I've had friends eat like 3 back to back to back.
Whoa.
And it just has like an awesome flavor to it. They're double baked, which is weird and a total pain in the ass because when they first come out of the oven, you're like, oh, cool bagel. And 2 minutes later, it's a roll, like it becomes soft. So then I started doing this double bake. So it has a good outside, but the inside stays soft and chewy. They're just, I kind of stumbled. They're just really, really fucking good. I don't know. And I don't even eat carbs anymore.
You're making the product you can't even enjoy.
Which is good because then more product gets out, right? It's like being a drug dealer who doesn't do drugs.
That's true. You get to sell more of the drugs because you're not going to die of your product, but because you'll be overdoing it. So you're not going to die from his product. But I mean, if you eat like 3 bagels a day, you're probably going to die. I mean, let's just be honest.
Depends. I mean, if they run like you do every day, then they'd be just fine.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all about diet, my friend. It is all about the inside.
You can't outwork a bad diet.
No, you can't. Barker.
I mean, a good diet.
Barker hit me up. I think it was like 3 months into the last year. A lot of it, I mean, like everyone's like, oh, they're commenting. I'm like, no, I'm like, a lot of it's just fucking walking because I was like, I just need to get outside and clear my head. And then like in the last 2 months has turned into more like going long distance because I want to do a marathon in March. And but like it definitely strengthened my legs. But Barker hit me up like 3 months into walking. He's like, dude, I just gotta ask, man, how much weight have you lost? I'm like, dude, I haven't lost shit. I drink all the fucking time and eat like an asshole. So it's all about that. That's like it's a 90-10 rule, like 10% exercise, 90% what the fuck you eat.
Absolutely, 100%.
So that's the health tip for everyone listening. That was the health section of the podcast before we talk
Absolutely.
about.
Well, it's also mental health because if you do sit behind a computer in After Effects all day, you can lose your mind.
You want to kill fucking everybody.
It's good to walk once in a while.
Yeah, I forgot that you did that. You were in video production. So you still doing video production and the bagels, or are you going to just go full force?
I still have video production, and I still have customtourpasses.com, and I have the bagel shop. And I've learned that you don't quit your day job until your night job pays. So right now I'm building the shop while keeping up with video more just motion graphic stuff, not shooting nearly as much. But if a good shoot comes along, I take it.
Don't be a pussy. Just jump. I'm so fucking over making shit for people. I am like trying my best to transition to just making products and selling that. Like I'm so done of like no one's gonna come into the bagel shop and say, "Can you make this specific bagel?" You're like, "No, you fucking buy it as is and get the fuck out of here."
No, they will. You should see some of the messages I get. So
Oh
like,
yeah, but you could be like, "No, I don't." You're like, "Oh, okay, I'll take that in consideration," but you don't have to. The product is made already, and you sell it as is, and then over time you can try new ones.
exactly. And I tell people you can do custom. So, hey, I want my everything bagels with no salt. I'm like, okay, well, why don't you custom order those? And the minimum's going to be 3 dozen. Like,
Yeah.
I just have to, I'm keeping a bit of it's a little soup Nazi-ish. Like, this is what we do. This is how we do it.
That's how you have to
Take
do
it or leave it.
But that's exactly how you have to do it.
Oh yeah, I'm already losing my mind with the messages I get from people. Like, I'll be giving out bagels for free, and someone will write to me, I need olive cream cheese on mine. Not I would like olive cream cheese or do you have olive cream cheese? This is the cream cheese I need. And I'm like, what? I'm giving you away a free bagel just to try. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think that the companies, and don't worry, we are going to talk about punk rock, but I think that that's where I want to go. I'm so over doing custom things for people because a lot of times I have really good clients and they're great to work with. But then there's the fucking idiots who hire you and they have no fucking money. So they come to you and say, I'm a small business, so you need to give me a deal. I'm like, I don't need to give you fucking shit.
Yeah.
And then the person who's paying like $100 is going to treat it like they're paying $10,000 because $100 is all they have in their marketing. And then I'm asking myself, like, why the fuck could I take this on? And then they just treat you like a moron, and they just like, oh, well, I could do this. It's like, well, here you fucking go. I actually fired a client 2 months ago. These guys.
Oh, it feels so great,
Oh,
doesn't it?
dude, these guys had the worst fucking logo, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. So I start doing things. I'm doing exactly what they're asking. They're coming back, we're just not into it. So I see this. I've been like, and it was like a Saturday. I've been out like just hanging with friends drinking. I see this message at night. So I email back. I'm like, hey, you know what, guys? I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. So let's just cut ties. They wrote back. They're like, wait, what? I go, yeah, I just don't want to do this. It's really not worth my time, and I don't think I'm gonna give you the best product. So no. And they were so confused, like, well, you can't tell me no. I'm like, no, I can. I just fucking did. So stop emailing me. Like, please.
Yeah,
I fucking don't like you.
It's really it's tough, and you do. I mean, you do better work than I do in After Effects. Like, you're way more talented in there in the work that you do.
Oh,
But
I'm just like way more aggressive and mean.
But I get it. Firing clients is wonderful. And it's interesting too, because I have this with the tour pass company. Someone can send me an email. Hey, we need 2,500 VIP passes. A lot of these bands these days are doing like meet and greets, and you get a special pass with it, which is awesome for, my company. So it's not just 40 passes for the tour. It's 2,500 or 5,000 for these meet and greets.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're like, how much? And I give them a quote. I'm like, did you need lanyards? Yeah. Here's a quote. Okay, done. And paid. And I don't hear from them. I send them a tracking number, got the passes, everything's good, done. Then I get a tour pass order for 6 passes from a band. Yeah. It equals 17 different emails about things. We need to change this. We need to do, and it's the biggest headache. I can tell when the order is going to be awful, and it's usually the lower the number. And I started a rule: if you send me more emails than the quantity of passes you've ordered, your order is automatically canceled, and you're refunded.
That's great.
Because you're just taking up so much of my time. Why is a $3,000 order? It's like I blink and I'm paid and everything's done. And this, $26 order it's amazing.
This is amazing. I never even knew you even had this. CustomTourPasses.com. CustomTourPasses.com, everyone. Go check it out. This is brilliant. And it's got like the whole pricing thing. God, that's great. That's so fucking
I started it like over 12 years ago simply because we needed, like, I guess I started it as Face First, I think. And we wanted laminates, but we only needed like 12. It was like us and one other band on the tour.
Brilliant.
And everyone's minimums were 50 passes, and they were very expensive for that that time. So I was like, let me just start my own business doing this. Had like no idea. Got the website up. Had like this little crappy inkjet printer, and I'm like, I can do this on this. And then I like put the paper through one side, then I put the other side, and it didn't line up. I was like, wait, you can't print evenly on the front and back of paper with anything at home. Oh shit! And I had orders to fill. Oh. So you figure shit out.
Yep. Yeah, I like how you figured it out for yourself. That's usually how businesses work. It's always, what's my own problem? Is there like a super niche way of doing this? And this is fucking great. I mean,
I almost sold it years ago to one of my biggest competitors. Our house had just burned down. We had a rental house back in 2012 that burned down. And this company had contacted me, and they were willing to give me a decent amount of money for it. And like business was really good on the video production side, and the tour pass was kind of just extra money. And I almost did it, and I was like, you know what? I was like, that money's going to be gone in X amount of time, where this is just the gift that keeps on giving. And I will, no matter what happens with bagels, like I will never give up custom tour passes.
Well, you should do. You should probably market it on my podcast site if you want to. Just if you really want to get the word out. But anyway.
Oh, apparently my dog appreciated
Yeah.
that.
Thank you, dog. All right, so we're gonna jump into this. So Mr. Seltzer here has actually, do you have a cousin named Shane who lives in Jersey?
I don't.
Okay.
I have we have no family.
Oh, okay. There was a Shane Seltzer I grew up with in Jefferson. So once you hear a last name and you hear it, like, you don't hear it that much, you're like, oh, you must know that other person with your last name.
Yeah. The answer's always no.
It's like,
no one's actually ever asked me and gotten anyone right. But
yeah, it's like when someone asks me, they're like, "Oh, you're from New Jersey? Do you know this person?" I'm like, it's a small state, but it's not that fucking small, or I'm just gonna know this person. Actually, sometimes I'm like, wait a minute, yes, I do know that person. I'm like, wait, that's crazy.
Music scene introduces to a lot of people, that's for sure.
Yeah. So Jarrett here you were in Face first, and then that transition to Houston Calls. Houston Calls, you guys started that in 2003, correct? From what I'm seeing from Wikipedia.
I would have to Wikipedia as well, so yeah, I'll go. Let's go with it.
Okay, but Face First was a punk ska band in Jersey, in the Jersey scene. Now, you guys, we're gonna go back more. Obviously, you know the structure, but what years did you guys start playing? Was it 97, 98?
So Tom Chitty and I, we met in the middle of 7th grade. We both moved to the same town in the middle of a school year, which, by the way, don't do to a 7th grader ever. Unless you want them to start the band and hate the world at that point.
Wait, don't talk about the origin story yet, because I want to get to that. But like, what year did the band actually start playing local shows, and then we'll work up to that.
Tom and I started May of 1996, and then Face First came about over really the next year. But him and I started the first band in May of 1996.
Okay, so we're gonna work up to that point, and then we're gonna probably, because like I said, I like to focus on the whole late 90s, early 2000s scene, but. Since you guys started in that time in transition to Houston Calls, which blew up, I mean, I guess you would agree with me, more than Face First, correct?
Yeah, I mean that's reasonable, more than Face First.
Yeah, but since they started in the Jersey scene, so I want to go back and talk about you getting into music, how you start going to the scene and go to Jersey shows, talk about the band, and then how that transitioned to Houston Calls. So as everyone knows from listening to this, let's go back to young Jarrett and talk about when you heard the first song you heard that was just music. It wasn't like punk rock. It was just something that you're going, holy fuck, I just absolutely love music, and how that transitioned to the punk thing.
Oh wow, that's a
loaded question, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, oof. It's a good thing you can edit this, because I can have a minute here to think.
I'm just gonna leave this whole blank space right here.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, let's see if I don't know if this fully answers it for you, but I went to a Billy Joel concert at what was Giant Stadium, and it was the We Didn't Start the Fire tour, so We Didn't Start the Fire was such a cool song growing up. And
I did love that song, though.
They showed on the big monitor Christy Brinkley looking up at Billy Joel during that song, and I was like, I want to be a rock star. This is awesome.
I want Christy Brinkley, so I need to play music.
And I went home and I put this plastic little crappy Casio keyboard on this little stand I had that you keep pens and pencils and had little different drawers in it, and that was my keyboard stand, and I just rocked out, acting like I was playing piano to We Didn't Start the Fire.
Okay.
I'm sure it started earlier than that. I mean, I grew up with Pink. I saw Pink Floyd when I was in 6th grade. My father was big into the Police, so that was kind of the music that I was raised on.
At what point in high school? Was it high school? Was it before high school? Did you hear it?
That was middle school.
Okay, so talk about that when you first heard how that transition to listen to punk or ska or whatever it was that got you into the whole scene.
Yeah, so Tom Chitty, he loved Green Day. He was a big Green Day fan, and I was still kind of transitioning out of the Pearl Jam Nirvana phase. And he loved Green Day, and he looked up where Green Day really come from. Dookie was out, but what happened before that? What was the history, right? So he found Lookout Records, and I believe it was Punk Uprising was the compilation that he bought from them, with I don't know, maybe 15 different bands on it or something. I'd have to look it up. And we just started listening, and we're like, wait, who's the Screeching Weasel? Who's that? Mr. T Experience, who's that? These bands are cool. And Tom was like, this is the type of band like I want us to be. So he really helped guide me into this music scene. And then, well, that'll jump a little bit too far ahead, but I would say like it all started with Lookout Records for us. Green Day got us to Mr. T Experience and Screeching Weasel, and those were like the bands we would cover while writing terrible songs as well, before like Face First actually became more of a quote unquote real band.
Well, how did you meet Tom? Because anyone listening to it, Tom is known as Chitty. For that's
Yes.
how long has he been known as that?
Keiger. His last
Keiger.
name's Keiger, but Chitty was his name in the music. Say I don't.
When did that come about? I know we don't have to like talk about Tom the whole time. Fuck that guy.
Tom,
I'm just kidding. I love Tom.
So he went off to college, and I was like, no, I'm staying back, and we're gonna make this band thing happen, and I'll continue to manage. You guys go get your education. And then like I went to meet, because like in high school we were like the kids that we were accepted by everyone. We weren't the cool kids, we weren't the nerds. We were like the band guys who like sat on a certain bench. And some jocks would come to our shows, some nerds would come to our shows, and like it was what the scene was about, right? We accepted everyone, which was cool.
Yeah.
So we were like those middle ground guys. But then when Tom went to college, he became like really cool. He had like his acoustic guitar, and he was in a band. And I got there, and they're like, "So how do you know Chitty?" I was like, "Who the fuck is Chitty?" That's Tom Chitty. And that's where Chitty actually really started to take off.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so
Yeah.
we jumped to college, but let's go back to middle school days. You guys meet. So how you guys met? Like how it's so funny because you guys are still buddies, and it reminds me of just like that's how like me and Barker met. We met in high school, and then we became friends, and through music, and we played in bands, and then that kind of fucked up our friendship for like a hot second. Then we were
Absolutely.
That's how it goes. But it's so cool. Like I'm just relating so much to the fact that you guys met so young and did the whole music thing together, and I'm sure we can get into how that might have had some ups and downs. But like, at what point, like, how did you guys meet in middle school, and then how was it that he was like, "Oh, dude, I listen to this music, and you listen to alternative. Fuck that shit. Here's Green Day."
Yeah.
Even though I was the same. Like, I loved Pearl Jam and Nirvana and Soundgarden back then, and all my friends were listening to punk rock. I'm like, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you the first time. Like, I remember we both moved to the same town in the middle of seventh grade, as I was saying, and you that's a weird time for a weird age, like 13 years old, moving in the middle of a school year, really, really difficult. And we kind of knew each other, but we were just still more of acquaintances. We weren't as like close as we ended up becoming. And then like eighth grade, the band stuff started, and I think we just like maybe had like a sleepover, and we played Super Nintendo. We played Off-Road on Super Nintendo, and listened to music, and was like, this is cool. And I'm like, okay, I guess I could like try to get into this. I'm like, you sure you don't want to listen? Like, I brought a copy of Pearl Jam 10. You sure? No? Okay. Old Green Day it is. But he definitely, even with like with starting the band, he played guitar, and you like, as a young band, you'd be like, okay, so I guess I should play drums, right? And he's like, no, play bass. I'm like, oh, okay. So we were just guitar and bass, and I didn't even know how to play bass.
Oh my God, this is so crazy. This sounds like I'm just relating to this so much. It's funny too. I mentioned in a few episodes, there was a couple before this one launches where I was talking to, I think it was either Jay Vix or I forget. No, Chrissy was before him. I forget who I was talking to, and I said no one starts off playing drums. And then it was funny because I've interviewed Jay from The Youth Ahead that's going to launch this Friday, so this is being recorded before that. And he just starts, I was like, yeah, I just want to play drums, so I play drums. I'm like, well, I guess my theory is shit, that people just don't start playing drums from nowhere, but bass is usually like the entry drug because it's so easy.
Yeah, and if only Tom, I was still, by the end of my career, I was still a very mediocre bass player. Like, I'm the first to admit that. Tom, like when we would cover like Screeching Weasel at like a coffee shop with just the two of us, he'd be like, it's these four chords, and he would just tell me like, third fret, fifth fret, first fret. And like, that's how I would remember it. And then there were other songs that he'd want to play, but were too intricate for me. And he would just say, wing it. And I had no musical skill. I mean, I still really don't. So like I can't imagine like what our coffee shop sessions sounded like, because I was just hitting random notes. I was at points. Like,
oh, you're legit playing in front of people at this point.
Yeah, like eighth grade in coffee shops.
Oh, sweet Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So he had been playing guitar for a while up to this point, so he actually had like some skill that you
He had
could?
some skill. I went and got lessons from the same guy that he got lessons from, and I was like, he taught me to play bass with two of my fingers instead of a pick, and I was like, can I play with my thumb? And he's like, no. And I'm like, but I want to. It's more comfortable. He's like, you have to learn to play this way. So I actually learned to play with my fingers. And even through Houston calls, they were like on stage, I would actually go back and forth. I was first to admit, it's amazing I made it as far as I did. Like, if I wasn't a good tour manager and manager in general and a guy who basically handled everything else, I would have been kicked the fuck out of Houston calls.
Oh man, I think a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I think some people had that where that was their way to stay in the band. They're like, well, I'm managing this shit, and they're like, all right, well, we get along, and you could still kind of beef up your skills there, but we don't want to do that shit. We don't want to manage this crap. So here you fucking go. Did you?
Yeah.
I mean, playing with your fingers was so hard. I started doing the same thing because I loved Matt Riddle, and he was always playing with his fingers, and he still does. But I remember when we started playing faster, my they would cramp up so much.
Oh, it hurt. And like on tour, if you were playing somewhere like really cold, like if it was in the middle of winter and you were in the Midwest or whatever, like you had to make sure you were inside for at least like an hour beforehand because your freezing hand would then cramp up. So, but I can still to this day, if I pick up, like I have an acoustic bass in my office at home, if I pick that up, for the most part, I'll play with my fingers.
Well, that makes more sense. Usually that is played with your fingers and usually not a pick unless you're Chris Novoselic and playing Nirvana Unplugged. But yeah, usually like, your fingers are the way to go. But when you start playing fast punk rock, that would suck. So that's a ballsy move that you did that and you guys played ska because usually you have to have some pretty hot licks as a bassist in a ska band.
Well, it was still punk ska. I mean, we wanted to be less than Jake, right? We didn't want to be. We weren't looking to be Madness.
Yeah, I remember hearing who's the dude from Rancid, the bassist from Rancid, who's absolutely incredible.
I'm terrible with names.
Yeah, I forget his fucking name, Matt something, but he's so amazing. And I remember just like hearing Roots Radicals or whatever, and I was like, God damn, like, how does that guy even think of that shit? I was like, I'm just gonna play the basic stuff, so let's not do ska. Let's stay fucking far away from this. But so when you guys now, did Face First start in middle school or high school?
So Face First, I guess, it must have been. It was the end of 8th grade into freshman year of high school.
Okay, and then. Like, how
like
did
it transitioned. We were called Karma because that was a fitting name for a band covering Screeching Weasel.
There you go.
The fuck were we thinking?
Was it just the two of you just jamming all the time at someone's house?
Yeah, we would. We built this fake recording studio in my parents' basement where we'd also like screened work shirts and made our own patches.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
you're very entrepreneurial at that at this young age.
We were, and then like it became even more. I mean, I don't want to. There goes me jumping ahead again.
Don't jump ahead, man.
Well, it became more because you had to figure shit out on your own.
Yeah.
Like, right? You had to. The scene was not even, as I said, like we were 1996 starting, middle of it, so it wasn't like all of these hall shows popped up. Like we would go find the hall and find one other band to play with. Like we'd rent out the Firehouse with the band Senseless and just put on a 2-person show. We used the local ice cream shop and charged $3 at the door and had to have this huge discussion of how do we figure out if someone's just here for ice cream or not. Like how are we going to handle such a show like this?
Well, how did you guys? But hold on, like so you guys started the band. You start it in. As you're entering high school, you get the band together. So you get 3 other guys to start playing, right?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think how drums started. Like, Tom was dating a girl who was friends with this guy who played drums, so he came in, and then later on had to sign this bogus publishing deal when he left the band to screw us all over to this day.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, So yeah, so she was friends with. So that was how the drummer came in, and then Oki also went to that school, and he played trumpet, so we brought him in. We had different drummers throughout times. A little bit of it's a little foggy because some of the drummer stuff went back and forth. But like fully, we're the 5 guys by the time Our Destiny was coming out, which was we're getting towards like junior year and actually like putting out our first record as Face First.
So wait, you guys grew up in Rockaway?
No, Tom and I grew up in Mendham.
Okay,
That was where we moved in '96.
Okay, so because your Wikipedia for Houston Calls says based out of Rockaway.
Yeah, Houston Calls was pretty much because our drummer then, who was the drummer at the end, or the drummer on the last two, Face First put out 3 records. On the second and third record, that drummer was from Rockaway, and that's where we kind of ended up hanging out when everyone's like college years were going on. He had like the cool house to hang out at, so we kind of became based like more of a Rockaway band.
Okay, so how did you guys get to your first show? Because I mean, Mendham. Well, I guess like Morristown, there were shows going on there, but I'm just trying to think of. I mean, I lived in Morristown before I moved down to Raleigh, and I loved it. But just getting to Mendham, it was quite a trek. I mean, not like saying Jefferson was close to fucking anything, but like how
No,
did
you guys are far as shit.
Yeah, we were super far, just down 23 or 80, but we could jump on 80 and that would take us pretty much to any shows, but you guys had to drive all the fucking way down, and I guess 287 was built at that point.
Yeah, but we were putting on our own shows, really. Like that girl that Tom was dating, she did, I remember, like a Halloween show with Shower with Goats.
Okay.
And this other band whose name I'm forgetting at this exact moment. And that was one of the first like shows, even though it was like a Halloween basement show that we went to. And we were like dancing along all night to songs we didn't know. And it was like, this is actually pretty cool. Like I was all nervous. Like, who are these kids from different schools that I'm going to see? Is anyone going to talk to me? And I was like, oh, this shit's really fun. This is awesome. I want to do this every weekend.
Did you find, because you said you moved to Mendham in 7th grade, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where were you living prior to that?
I was in Bergen County in a town called Woodcliff Lake.
Okay. So moving to a school in 7th grade. Yeah, 7th grade's a weird year. I remember I was so depressed my 7th grade because I was like fat and like just short and I had no friends. And
check mark.
Yeah. God, Jesus Christ, dude. I think we're like brothers. We have such a parallel fucking story, except your band actually got like, noticed. But you guys, you move to Mendham, and then, starting a school in 7th grade, it's already awkward. You have to,
and it's the middle. You got to throw it in the middle of the school year. Like we moved in the middle of January.
Oh, jeez.
So you don't even get that fresh September start. Like, oh, that's the new kid. Let me go. Like, it's like, where the fuck did this kid come that's sitting in my class?
Yeah,
like,
you're like, oh, that's gotta be weird. So I can imagine going to. I mean, granted, a couple years later, going to this show, it sounds like you brought that with you of. That nervousness of, great, I'm going to a new place, who's going to fucking like me, and then you find that people accept you, you're going, oh my God, I found where I belong.
100%. Absolutely.
It's funny just dissecting this shit and just seeing why people gravitated towards this, but it makes sense. It's just kids who are not accepted or just looking for some kind of group, and we show up there and they're like, wow, we're all in the same fucking room, we all like the same music, that's why this worked, and that's why to this day we still love that, because it was the first time we felt, I wouldn't say happiness, that's kind of a stretch, but like belonging.
It was definitely a belonging, because it was, the other kids were playing sports, right? Like back then, and those high school years, I graduated 2000, the jocks were the cool people, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's who was cool, the people playing sports. So there were the kids playing sports, that had the game on Friday or Saturday night. There were the kids who were off doing drugs, which we weren't really, like, wasn't our thing.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh wait, like one cool guy is playing at the Palace. This is going to be the greatest night ever, right? So you just like, yeah, you were accepted. You didn't feel like I'm probably worse now than I was then. Like I would go to a show and just dance my ass off. Now I go to a wedding. My wife's like, let's dance. I'm like, it takes me like 10 vodkas till I'm willing to get on the floor.
Yeah. I mean, I'm about 5 bourbons away from getting on that dance floor. Hold on.
Exactly. But no, I'll go to Skaters World and skank the night away, and sweating my ass off and don't care what anyone thinks.
So your first show was in Mendham that you went to, and then you guys, is that right? And then you guys started putting on shows out there?
I think so. The basement, I think, was Chester, which was next door to it.
Oh, that was even further out. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'm trying. Well, that was like our high school shared with Chester. But like we put on, I mean, the very first show Tom and I played was 8th grade. We played in the backyard of our friend Will Hall's house.
Okay.
That was like technically just Tom and I with the the Karma whenever the Face First. I'm trying to think what Face First show was, and I'm not positive. I'm sure I know there was an Obsessions show somewhere in there in Randolph where you had to sell tickets, or was his name Bill? Holy shit, was that scary? We only sold 23 of our 50 tickets. Well, you better call your fucking parents to get down here with the rest of this money, or you're not playing tonight.
Seriously?
Oh, God, you didn't know about Obsessions?
Dude, we knew of Obsessions and Chain not Chain Reaction. That was in California.
That's Cal-
There was Obsessions, and there was another one that started with a C. Fuck, what was it? Everyone's yelling at their fucking car radio right now or
Yep.
iPod. But that Connections. No,
Connections.
Connections and Obsessions. That's so weird. If that was right. But anyway, I always heard of these places, but we never played those clubs. The only club we ever had to play where we had to sell that shit, we did it like once, was Stone Pony, and we're like, dude, fuck this.
Yeah, fuck this is right. You're like, and you're 15.
Yeah.
Like my friends don't have money,
Yeah, I know.
let alone like money in advance.
Well, plus,
right?
like all your friends who go to shows, they're like, "Can I get on the list? Can I get on the list?" You're like, "No, fucking pay."
Back then there was like no list. I feel like though, like early on there was no list.
There was like our friends, they would grab a piece of equipment and just walk in with it, or grab merch, and be like, "Who's that?" They're like, "That's our roadie. That's our
Always
other
the hi hat
roadie."
stand. They
Yeah,
love the hi hat stand.
that guy's carrying sticks. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, let him in for free because we're none of us are gonna make any money.
Yeah, but Obsessions made you sell tickets, and if you didn't, like, the guy was ruthless. He took advantage of you being young and like scared. You went into his shitty little office in the basement, and you're just like, "Okay, Mom, can you come bring a couple $100 so we can play with Let's Go Bowling?"
See, if I just cut that as the intro or a teaser, people are like, what are they fucking talking about?
Probably a lot of places for a teaser.
You're like, Jarrett, did he get diddled back in the That's so fucked. So you guys start playing shows, you're playing ska, you're figuring out how to play bass, kind of. Um, like, do you remember when you guys started playing in, like, outside of there? Like what was, like, the first big show that you guys, big local show you guys played?
Big local.
And this is such a hard question too, but I'm looking through all the flyers on NJPP Archive and their Facebook.
You know, so like I would say a lot started with the band Senseless.
Okay.
We would, I remember playing on a show at Chester Firehouse with them. It was just the two of us. And then they kind of created the Bernardsville scene,
Yeah.
which at the end was where like LWL, sprung up from.
Yep.
And a lot of the pinball stuff. And, going back to the entrepreneurial stuff, as we said, it was like we had to get it done because there wasn't, like, you weren't getting on the show at the Stone Pony, right? Or, like, you weren't getting on anything big yet, so you had to figure it out yourself. And Senseless was an intricate part, I would say, with Face First and getting the Bernardsville scene stuff going. And then, from there was when I started Decibel Records at 15 because I'm like, I want to get on these compilations. Well, no one's putting us on them. Okay, I'll fucking do it myself again. Right? Like
I forgot. Okay, that's right. And someone just mentioned that the other day in an interview. I was like, I think it was Jay.
Probably Jay. Yeah, because Dharma Boys were on the label.
That was why.
Sorry, Dharma Boys and Red Rover split.
And then you also at the same time had Braceface. Or was that that was Evan.
Yeah, no Braceface.
That was Evan. Yeah, didn't you have a zine though?
No, I couldn't write for shit. I couldn't play bass or write for shit.
Really good at business though. I got to tell you, man. Like I'm very impressed with. Oh, I need to do that? Well, how do I do that? Like, how do I put on a show? How does my band get to play shows? Oh, I want to put music out? Okay, I'll start a fucking record label. I want to make bagels? I'll start a bagel shop.
Yeah, you get told enough, so you're just like, fuck, I'll figure it out then, right? Like, tried to get on tours, and it's like, no one knows who you are. Okay, fine, I'll book a fucking tour then.
That's amazing.
And that's how you had to do it. And that's what, Decibel Records definitely helped with the compilations because it was able to get out there. And obviously I was able to put, Face First was like the first song on the very first comp, of course, because, at the end I'm trying to push my own band. That's the real goal here.
So how did you run a record label at 15? Like, tell me in quote unquote what running a record label looked like at 15. Like, were you spotting money or were you just slapping your logo on shit?
No. So like for New Jersey in a Nutshell, which was my first comp, I did it. I was like, I don't have enough money to put any of this shit out, right? But these bands could probably spring together like $100 or $200. So it was kind of like give me $100. I'm going to give you a 30 box of the CDs when they come in. You can sell them for $8. You'll make this much money. Like I was teaching other bands business.
Yeah. I think we were on that label. Were we on that comp?
What's that?
Were we on that comp?
I don't think you guys,
I thought we were.
I have hold on, I think I have it over here. One second, I'm walking away.
You have copies over there?
Fuck yeah.
I love you. Just hear you in the distance, just like walking away to trying to find it.
No, you weren't on New Jersey in a Nutshell, but we had like Bigwig, Youth Ahead, the Jerkoffs, the Derringers, Shorty, the No Shows. That was the other band from that party I was thinking about.
I think I bought this comp. I know exactly the comp. Like I remember it, and I remember seeing it at shows. It's clear as day. But I think I do remember buying that and playing it in my car.
Well, thank you for your support.
I think so. I don't 100%, but.
And I thought I was starting this big movement because I put a stop sign on the front. It says, "Do not pay more than $8 for this CD," and that was going to be like one of my cool punk rock things on all my records.
Yeah, I do remember that. Wait, do you have a Facebook page anywhere that you made for like nostalgia purposes, or?
I don't, but if I went through my storage unit, I could probably create. I have so much stuff.
How many bands did you sign?
I only really signed Red Rover and the Dharma Boys.
Okay.
That was when I was like, now we were into, I'm probably like 19 or 20. And I'm like, I can't just exist on compilations. That's not going to work. I need to sign someone. But I was also looking at like, I knew Drive-Thru records at the time. And I was like, I got to sign someone and then like blow them up so they get bought out by a major and I make all this money. And then I can really run a record label. So I was like, either Red Rover or Dharma Boys, I'm going to blow one of them up. And that's going to make a ton of money so that I can actually run a record label.
That's genius. I mean, it doesn't sound like it worked.
No, it didn't work.
But it did connect you to Drive-Thru, though, which obviously led to Houston Calls getting on there.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, there was something where it's like, oh, maybe I'll do this, but it doesn't happen the way you're actually thinking it will, but it led to something else that you just paid attention to. You're like, well, wait a minute. Maybe we can, we'll get into Houston Calls in a minute, but it's like, oh, maybe we could be the band on this label and actually make the money.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Drive-Thru actually paid to master the very first Face First record, Our Destiny. They paid to master that, and they were going to distribute it. And I'm not sure, looking back, I don't really remember what fully happened. Like, the back of the CD does say distributed by Drive-Thru Records. And then I feel like we got in trouble for that, even though they told us that, like, I thought they told us we could put that there. But they also put us on a comp, and that's actually what really helped Face First. Because we had one song that was really, really catchy that was on this comp that they put out. And that, when I went to like book our first tours, I was like, we were featured on the blah, blah, blah Drive-Thru comp. So it was like, okay, these guys are kind of known, or I heard that song. So that was like gigantic for us at that time.
That's amazing. Actually, real quick, just to kind of jump back to Jersey in a nutshell. So it's on the NJPP archives, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's got the jersey coming out of the nut with the stop sign. Face First, discontinued, Bigwig, Youth Ahead, the Jerk-Offs, Derringers, Felix Frump, Sin 41. Wow. Yep, Shorty. I think Don't Walk Onto Me. Oh my God, that's so crazy.
I love that Shorty song.
So again, just to kind of go back, they paid, they bought in to be on the comp, which bought them 30 CDs, and you're like, well, you'll make your money back.
Yeah, it was basically like, as long as you sell them, this is your I'm showing you your profit margin, and that I did for both compilations. And like the most amazing with Spunk, which was the second comp that I put out, thinking Ska Punk, not realizing Spunk meant something else. Because I was just a nerd, dude. I didn't know those things. Like one cool guy gave me an unreleased song that they paid to record and still bought CDs. I'm like, I'm doing something right.
Man, I guess.
But everyone was able to make money. Like, it wasn't an Obsessions thing where it was like a pay to play. Like, you're just buying into this. You're going to get the exposure and you're going to get to make a profit.
So, like, so you got all this going on and you're in high school still, right?
Yeah.
And
at the payphone every chance I had.
Incredible. Now, how big did Face First get in the scene? Like, were you guys playing shows where you had a lot of people showing up? Like, what was your fan base like?
So I would say I wouldn't say huge. It depended depends where we were playing. But Face First in New Jersey if we were like in Mount Arlington, which was like one of our big ones, we could sell out to the hall there, which I guess was like maybe like 350, 400 kids. I think like if we did 300 kids at a show, even pending the other bands, that was a pretty cool night.
You guys stayed with the band up until 2003? Like, you stayed through that whole transition of 2000? Jesus. So you guys, I've talked in so many interviews about when it was like around 2001, people started to notice there was like a dip and the hall shows started to just stop happening, but then Hamilton Street came around and that place in
Bloomfield Ave Cafe.
Ave Cafe. So those popped up. Like, and then how old were you guys in like 2001? Because you said you went to go see Tom Keiger in college, and they
Call me
introduced
you
you to
want.
Chitty. What year was that?
Well, so we graduated high school 2000. So 2001 was his first year in college.
So like for you, you're starting all this stuff. Did you actually go to college?
I was registered at County College of Morris for 8 years. And I have 18 credits to show for it because my father said you can do whatever the hell you want, but you have to have health insurance. And if you go to college, you'll be on my policy. Otherwise, you got to pay for it. So I went to County College of Morris for 8 years.
So you went to CCM for like
I
even
registered for 8 years and kept withdrawing because I failed out at one point. Had to go to Sussex so I could keep my health insurance, and then I just would register every year and every semester, and then withdraw before I failed out and not go.
So you did that so you could have health insurance.
It saved me $4,000 a year in health insurance. I
That is,
had to do what I had to do.
but that's brilliant. I didn't even know I could do that. I think I think I still had health insurance. I mean, don't have it now, which is probably not good, but that's a whole other story. But God, dude, you're a smart dude, man. Like I'm really impressed by all this like shit you just catch on. So it's like so easy. It's like second nature. You're like, oh well, if I just do this, I think other people are going, wait, you're not allowed to do that. You're like, no, you are. I just
I
fucking
mean, like,
did
had I
it.
gotten hit by a bus or something, well, if I had gotten hit by a bus, it's probably the bus's fault. But, like, who knows what would have happened if, God forbid, something serious happened. But nonetheless, I mean, I got through it.
You register for county, and Tom is in college, and then how did you guys? And then he's coming back, and you guys are playing shows on the weekends. Like, how often are you guys playing shows?
Yeah, exactly. Like Oki went to college in Boston. He was, playing trumpet for the band. Um, so we would go down to, like, Tom would get us a show in Delaware. At that time, Bob Freeman, who ended up in, Hidden in Plain View, was drumming for us. He was drumming for us by our first tour, which was the summer right out of high school.
Okay.
And it would just be like we booked it for this weekend or that. And it was always a fight, and it was always a pain in the ass. Tom's like, I want to stay at college this weekend and, like, hang out with my friends. I'm like, yeah, but, like, we got this is going to be a good show. Or it was like, no, that show is going to suck, so it's not worth coming back. We're little bitches at the time. So it's a pain, it was a huge pain in the ass, but we kept it going. And summers was, I would book tours and, do everything that we possibly could. But it was definitely Tom's in Delaware, Oki's in Boston. It's a huge pain in the ass.
Oh yeah, that's a giant, that's a bit of a commitment for just meeting up for the weekend and then driving 5 fucking hours to go back to school.
Yeah, and risking playing to, like, 78 kids at Bloomfield Ave because it snowed or whatever. Like,
Did you guys but in that transition where all the hall shows started to just go away and the Hamilton Street and Bloomfield Cafe, like, did you notice this and think like, was it like noticeable that it sucked? I mean, maybe it didn't suck. Like maybe it was still good. Yeah.
No, we still had, like, Mount Arlington Elks Lodge was fine for us. We booked that to the end. I mean, the very last Face First show, we did at the church still. So, like, that part didn't really kill us. What killed us, or what was ending us, was we saw that ska was going away. And it was like, if you weren't Less Than Jake or Real Big Fish or one of these successful punk ska type bands, probably wasn't going to happen.
So then how did you guys make the transition to Houston Calls?
So Tom wrote a song called One More Won't Hurt for Houston Calls, or for Face First. And it didn't need horns. Like, it was just this awesome pop punk song. It was really good. We recorded it with Bob Freeman once he was into Hidden in Plain View was moving along. They had signed to Drive-Thru at the time. And we recorded it with him. And we put this awful horn bridge line in just to have horns in it. And it was awful. Like, I don't know if you remember the show The Hogan Family growing up, but, like,
Yep.
It was like the intro to that just, like, kicked into this amazing pop punk song. And it wasn't necessary, and it was terrible. And I'll never forget, I picked up Bob and Joe Rio, singer of Hidden in Plain View, at the airport. I think they'd come back from, like, something, maybe shooting a music video in LA, and I'm like, fuck you guys. Like, you're living the dream, right? I'm picking you over the airport. And on the ride home, they're both like, that song's awesome. You guys have to ditch the horns. They're like, we're telling you this as friends that have, like, grown up together. The horns got to go. You got to do something. And Tom agreed, and Oki were like, why don't you go to keyboard from trumpet? And, like, things that would normally be our horn lines can go to keyboards. And we had to let our saxophone player go at the time because there was just no spot for him. And Houston Calls was born.
So you guys just like, you kicked him out. And then Was Josh in Face First, or did he come later?
Josh's Houston Calls.
Okay, so then you guys just were like, why don't we just do a fresh start? We've been playing for years. This ska thing's dying, and then this song just kind of felt like a transition to something new that was more sustainable.
Which was also petrifying because you always think you're like, everyone's still going to know me as Jarrett from Face First, right? Like, you never think anyone could actually move on. Then you look back and you're like, no, it's Jarrett Houston Calls Face First. What the hell was that?
Yeah, it is. I mean, over time, it eventually will do that, but if you're so close to it, people like when we went from Conquer's a Cow to Lane Meyer, people were like, "Oh, Conquer's a Cow." Then after a while, they're like, people were like, "Yeah, you're right. Who's fucking Conquer's a Cow?" Like,
Exactly.
yeah, no one remembers that shit, especially if you do it well and the songs are better. Then, yeah, and you don't like stick around just for like a couple months and break up. Then remember the first one. But I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
Houston Calls went a bigger direction. So you switch gears and you keep playing. How did that transition to Drive-Thru, and then like what was that progression like?
So we put out we recorded this 4-song sampler as Houston Calls that we put out. We did that. We just started playing shows as Houston Calls, like trying, doing the X Face First on the flyer, right? Hanging on to it as long as we could. And then again, it was Bloomfield Ave, Hamlin Street, and just building up that way, booking early tours. I booked the first Pure Volume and Absolute Punk.net tour.
Wait.
I was like, let's try to find sponsors.
Wait,
and
what do you mean you booked it? Like you booked the tour for them, or you booked yourselves on that tour?
I created the tour.
What?
I was like, wait, Absolute Punk is taking off and Pure Volume is like where everyone's playing their music nowadays because MP3.com was gone by that point. And so I reached out and I was like, hey, I've got these bigger bands, which was Hidden in Plain View, Hello Goodbye, The Academy Is,
What the fuck?
Us, and Madison. And I was like, I've got these bands. I want to put this tour. Basically, it was like, because I couldn't just sell us, right? Because we weren't big enough. So I like went to the big guys on both sides and sold them to each other and snuck us in, right? Much like putting on our own shows, much like putting out our own comps, like keeping the same thought process, right? Like, let me get the big guys on this side, the big guys on this side. I'll put it all together, and then maybe I can make something happen here. And so we did, and we did a cool tour with that. The Academy Is ended up dropping off, and Action took their place. And like Hello Goodbye was just coming up, and it was an awesome tour that really helped us as Houston Calls get our name on the map, for a full U.S. tour.
I'm just like constantly impressed by every single thing I'm hearing. This is so amazing.
Well, and like I
think I'm gonna hire you for like business coach advice. You should be consulting, my friend, if you're not. It's amazing. At like a young age, you're figuring all this shit out. You're like, oh, I want to do a big tour. I'll book it.
Yeah, and like I was still scared because I was like, none of these guys are gonna give me money, but be like, hey, how about you guys will still give us free advertising on your websites and we'll put your logos on our posters, right? Like there was no money exchanged, but to Hello Goodbye and to Hidden in Plain View and these other bands, it's like, okay, cool. It looks like he knows what he's doing. I mean, Hidden in Plain View knew me and us, but like he looks like he knows what he's doing. These are some of the most, prominent sites right now. And they're like, well, these are some of the up and coming bands. So cool. And I'm like, cool. Now my band can play a tour.
So you do this. Now, did you book you did book the tour?
Yeah.
Okay. So you booked the tour. How long was it?
That was probably like 3 weeks, maybe.
Okay. So when you're calling up these places and telling them this, was it an instant, oh, hell yeah?
Back and forth, right? So some people were like, we'll give you $100 a band. And some people were like, yeah, we could do 1,500 guarantee for the package and back end deal. Wow. So it totally like depended where we were playing.
Holy shit. Now, was that when you went on that tour, like, was it like a majority of the show is pretty big?
It did very well from what I remember. We had a great time.
Okay, so you do that and then you come back, and did you just keep booking them like that, or did you?
I gotta remember when we picked up our booking agent. So we signed after we put out the second sampler. I remember we ran into Richard and Stephanie at club. I guess it was Chrome at the time.
It was Benet first, right, and then turned to Chrome.
Yeah. Well, no, Hunka Bunka at some point in there too, right?
Bunka. Yeah.
Beforehand.
Yeah, I remember hearing that at PLJ all the time when I was growing up. I was like, what is this place?
So I think we were there playing with something corporate, and I'm pretty sure we gave Richard and Stephanie. I remember they were like in a car, and I remember handing them the new sampler. And I don't remember how or when the talks really started with them to sign, but once we signed with them, then that's when things start coming through for you, right? That's when you can get a booking agent.
Yeah.
but we were still always I was very hands-on, like with our booking agent, this guy, Zach Molinex, who was awesome, but I was always still very hands-on with him. Like I would look at routing, I'd be like, no, we're not doing the Midwest in December. Like we did that. We missed out on X amount of shows because of the snow. Let's go south. Let's, always trying to like make deals or figure out the best way to do things.
So, okay, so you guys sign with Drive. Now you guys are specifically on Drive-Thru and not Rushmore, right?
No, it was Rushmore. I mean, the only reason they had to do Rushmore for legal reasons because their deal with was it Geffen and then, or MCA then Geffen, whatever the deal was that ended up going with Geffen, where Geffen then got a lot of their bands. I believe that was all under the Drive-Thru umbrella. So that's why Rushmore had to start. But everyone thought that like Rushmore was the bastard child of the label, so you just said you were on Drive-Thru because it didn't sound cool if you said you were on Rushmore.
Yeah, I remember Day at the Fair when they were on there. It was like, oh, you're on Drive. Like, oh, Rushmore. Okay, it's kind of like, what the fuck is that? Like, what do you
played it off? Yeah, you're like, yeah, we're on Drive-Thru. I thought it says Rushmore. Yeah, it's really the same thing.
Yeah, it's just Drive-Thru. Let's just move on. So what were the tours like at that point? And then how often, like once you guys signed to Rushmore, aka Drive-Thru, and you got a booking agent, how often were you on the road?
I'd say, once we put out a collection of short stories, which was the first record, we toured off that thing, I want to say like a solid 2 years.
Holy shit.
I'd say, at least a year and a half, 2 years, but we also did overseas as well with that. So we got to do the UK. Well, Japan was our first overseas. We did the UK. This huge promoter in Australia fucking loved us. And one day called me and said, hey, I want you guys to do this tour with Yellow Card in Australia. It's already sold out. I'm going to pay you $25,000, plus you get to keep all your merch, and I'm going to pay all your expenses and handle everything. So your tour manager, your hotel, your flights, all of that's going to be handled for you. And I was like, is this guy like even real? Because this sounds way too good to be true. And it was true.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, I mean, nowadays when I hear that, I'm like, yeah, that's great for us. But I'm like, and how much money did that fucking guy make?
Well, right? And like the tour's already sold out. What the fuck do you need us for? But so we toured a lot off of a collection of short stories.
So were you guys actually able to, and did everyone leave college? I mean, besides you, who was not in college?
Everything was done. College was pretty much done by that point.
How old were you guys at this point? Like 22?
It's 2004. Yeah, I mean 20. Yeah, ish, right? Yeah.
Okay. So you guys are doing this, like there was no fee, like was there any pressure on you guys to like stop doing the band? Like anyone in the band getting shit from their parents or friends of like, yo, you're in your 20s now, you need to be doing a real career, or were you guys all on the same page? Like, no, this is great. Like we're actually being able to pay some bills, we could be on the road comfortably. This is working out.
We were pretty good with it, and then Kenny, our guitarist at the time, who recorded on the collection of short stories, his time came where he's basically like, I'm ready to start a family and be done with this.
At 22?
No, a little bit older. No, a few years into a collection of short stories touring.
Okay.
So,
like, fuck,
but he was pretty much ready to go before the second record was recorded. But otherwise, I mean, some people I think got pressure here and there. I had custom tour passes going, so I had like my own little side gig deal. And then we always still all live together, which is, fucking terrible.
Oh, God.
Because you can't get away from someone if they're pissing you off.
Yeah.
But that, we would just be able to squeeze by with, paying rent or whatever it was. And there was like a little bit of time where you came home with like a couple $1,000s off a tour, but you weren't like, you weren't making car payments. Like you had a used car or, and you were barely covering insurance.
When you were playing with all these other bands who were probably a little bit bigger or that were bigger, were you talking to them about like, hey guys, like how do you actually make a living off of this?
I was definitely the business guy on the tour, right? So I was either tour managing the whole tour or talking to whoever the business guys were in the bands to get more ideas and just kind of like learn stuff. I remember when we were out with Yellow Card, I was sitting next to Ryan, the singer, at dinner once, and I had this girl I was dating at the time, and she was like giving me shit, and I'm like, for being away in Australia, I'm like, giving me shit. This is like the coolest tour ever. I'm only gone 2 weeks, and I asked him, I was like, how do you deal with it? He said, he goes to me, it's absolutely no different, Jarrett. The only difference is I can afford to send her flowers. Go, all right, got it.
Wow.
Some of the bands, like Hello Goodbye they weren't like business talkers. I feel like I guess Drive-Thru or management or whoever really helped get them where they were going, they weren't the grinders. Like, they played, they worked their asses off, but they weren't the grinders like we were, and like booking our own everything to try to get there. So, it depends who we toured with and who we talked to. I remember I was tour managing Hidden in Plain View with MXPX, and I was talking to their tour manager a bunch. It was awesome, and like getting ideas from him on different things. So, I would find who I could when we were out, for sure.
So did you break off and manage other bands when you were touring or not touring?
I would tour manage other bands when we were not touring.
So you just you'd get home from tour and then jump in a van or bus with another van and go out with them right away?
Depending when the tour was, I wouldn't necessarily say right away, but like I would do some stuff with Folly, and Hidden in Plain View was one of the big ones that I would do. Oh, and actually, that guy, I was on the back of MXPX's bus one night drinking with the tour manager, and he's like, "Isn't this the life, man? Isn't this what you want?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm in my own band." He goes, "Oh, they didn't tell me that." I go, "They didn't tell you what?" He's like, "Oh, they told me to get you drunk and convince you to be their full-time tour manager." I was like, "You motherfuckers." He goes, "They didn't tell me." And he said, "You can't." He goes, "You got to get the playing thing out of your system before you can tour manage. Otherwise, you're going to be a jealous tour manager." And it's true. I would watch
totally
it in Plain View and be like, "Why the fuck is that not us?" And
did that actually? So that, like, what was the inner, let's say, dialogue like? What was the vibe like in the band between you guys? Because you're on the road seeing this, and that's got to be causing, like you said, like a little bit of jealousy, and then the guys are home and getting older. Were you guys just like getting along the whole time, and you're fucking living together, or was there like the dynamic getting a bit aggressive, like negative?
The dynamic would definitely shift at points. Like the first couple of years were awesome. As I said, we got to go overseas. Things were good. When it got to the time of writing the second record and kind of getting stalled by the label not loving songs, and like I'm now like working at the screen printers, making T-shirts to stay afloat. Yeah. And the jealousy thing, like it was there. Like you still wished, like never wished anyone harm, but like there was absolutely. I mean, there was jealousy in the NJ scene, right?
Oh,
like.
Yeah.
I'd watch Gabe Supporter on stage, and I was like, motherfucker, he's like tall, he's skinny, he's a good singer, he can fucking jump like an animal. Everyone loves Midtown. What the fuck? I want to be cool. Right? Like, there was jealousy, but I think the jealousy is what helped push it to like lit the fire under my ass, at least.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that in so many episodes. I mean, just the jealousy. I mean, just personally, I could totally relate to that, of the jealousy thing of seeing that shit and being like, what the fuck? Like, why can't that be me? But like, be me. But sometimes it's also, well, you got to find the right audience who wants your, we could say, business wise, like your product, even though it's music. And sometimes the demographic just isn't 100% there. Like some of these bands, you just see them, you're like, what? How the fuck is this making sense where so many tens of thousands of people are coming out to you? You're like, I don't fucking get it. It's just, and then some of them you're like, yeah, I totally get it. Like I understand.
Yeah, and some of it you have to see live too.
Yeah.
I think like it's a different story. Like we went to see Panic at the Disco. Their tour manager Tony wanted bagels, and I was like, bagels for the show. And he goes, done. So I made bagels for them, and my wife and I went out and saw Panic, and like there were a bunch of songs that I had liked through Spotify or whatever, and then you see him on stage. And it's magic. It's insane. And it's so not my type of show. My show is in a small room. Like I don't want more than 1,000 kids unless, I'll go see Jimmy Eat World for like, 2,500, 3,000. Like that's my limit.
Yeah.
And this was in, an arena, and it was one of the top 5 shows I've ever been to. It was insane.
Was this recently?
Yeah.
Yeah. That story is kind of amazing. Just to kind of jump for a second. I mean, that band, didn't they make a demo and then sell 10,000 copies to get signed before they ever played a show?
I don't know, to be fair.
I had heard that, and then, when they came out, it was like 2006 or 2005, 2006 is when I heard of them. I'm like, fuck this band, fuck this bullshit. And then my girlfriend at the time played me one of the songs. I was like, oh, this is catchy as hell. This is amazing. And then I heard the story. I read it online somewhere that Pete Wentz like heard them before they'd played, and their first show was when they'd sold 10,000 copies or something. And then I was like, oh fuck those guys. But then from what I've seen, that is it Brendan or Brandon? What's
Brendan?
It? Brendan.
Yeah,
like
Garrett.
Yeah, I mean he's a great performer, and
he's insane. And he also went through a lot of stuff because they were like your normalish band with different band members and everything. And then members came and went, and he stuck it through. Yeah. And he ended up being like the sole guy of the band. So while he does work with songwriters and there's other stuff, and you'll see credit, like when you look at their music, like that's still basically his band now, right? Opposed to where in our scene, right, it was, if you were a 4-piece, you reached 25% of that band. So, but he went through a lot of shit to get there, which is, kind of fascinating. And yeah, Fall Out Boy had a big influence with them. I think Patrick helped write at the beginning with them. And, we got to, when I was out with Hidden in Plain View, we did Hidden in Plain View, Fall Out Boy in the early November, and we were doing like 80 kids a night in Buffalo.
What?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. So like you got to I have so many questions I want to ask now. You guys got to play with these big bands and get to see them. Like, did you feel when you were touring at that time, like like you just said though, you played 80 in front of 80 kids a night with Fall Out Boy, and who else was it with?
Fall Out Boy was headlining early November. Actually, it was early November headline. One was direct support, whatever. Hidden in Plain View, early November, Fall Out Boy.
Did you see? I know I was going a different direction, but I want to shift now. Did you see? Because at that time you're saying Fall Out Boy, early November. That was the time where there was just this shift in music, where there was the punk thing like progressed or just went off in a hard left. Where it was like brand new, created Deja into New or whatever you say that fucking album. Like they did their thing and like Taking Back Sunday advances on the sound and like all these different sounds came out, and you guys are just cutting through from the 90s into this and seeing all this happen. Were you, and you saw the shift in the scene, were you like excited at that time for this, or were you kind of worried?
No, there were certain things that I saw were cool. So like when we were out with when I was out with Hidden in Plain View for that Fall Out Boy tour, you saw something in Fall Out Boy.
Yeah.
Like you're like, this is going to be gigantic. Like you could actually like, you could see it there. And then for Houston Calls, we were always very big on like, we're not every other band. Like we don't dress like every other band. Like when all the crazy hair stuff, started happening and where everyone's flat ironing their hair and wearing Glamour Kills t-shirts. We were like,
write love on our arms, or whatever that shit was.
Yeah. We're like, that's not us, which probably hurt us to a certain extent. But we were still Tom and I were always kept like kind of our punk rock mentality when push came to shove. And definitely to a fault to a certain extent, right? But
I appreciated that though. I appreciate it when bands stuck to their guns, especially now. Like even seeing that Less Than Jake is still playing, and they're still they look exactly like Less Than Jake from the 90s, except for Chris is a bit like more leathered out now, or punk rocked. Not leathered out. I'm sorry. He's got like jean jacket. Like he's a bit more.
Well, I give the guy credit. The guy lost a ton of weight too, so if he wants to rock that jean jacket, good for him.
But it's like it's not like he didn't change because the fashion. That's the only slight difference. I'm thinking, he's like wearing a sleeveless jean jacket or something, which is just so random to say out loud. But that's it. But if I saw a picture of them in the late 90s and picture them today, I'd say like, wow, they still are doing the same. Fucking
Roger's
thing.
Still wearing that same Teen Idol shirt,
and he still has the fucking dreads. He still has like the same dreads from like back then. And some bands just stuck with what it was, and they weathered the storm, and then they just kept going, and it comes back, and then it becomes nostalgic where it becomes classic, and I think they can keep going with it because it's like 80s bands, and they came out with the whole glam thing. It was a giant joke when Nirvana came out, and then now they're playing stadiums again because people love the nostalgia, and then they're going to see them because they remember decades ago, and they can just ride off of that.
And yeah, you're entirely correct with it. And what I realize now too is the people, especially like through social media, that I'm still in touch with who used to come see us, whether it was Houston Calls did really well in the Midwest. So like a lot of our Midwest friends who are, older with kids and families, they're still the ones who comment on my social media stuff. Like they're the ones who are really still around. And there's other people who were still like younger, whatever. But I feel like the older crowd that like really did stick with us. Like our fans were loyal. We may not have had as many fans as we could have, but our fans were really, really loyal, and they stuck with us as they got older.
Do you have any before I do have to like wrap this up because I sadly have to get to fucking work, even though I can talk about this all the time. Yeah, I could go work.
Okay, I have like 17 bagel emails and texts right now.
Just right back. I have 4 flavors. No, that's what you fucking get. Actually, real quick.
No olive cream cheese.
Yeah, actually, super side note. I have a friends down here. They started a donut thing just through Instagram. Just said, here's our 5 flavors that we have. Let us know which ones you want. You get 4 for $15, and we have a limited order. So just tell us through Instagram. We'll send you a PayPal. You pay it. And so by Wednesday, and they only market it through Instagram stories. And they would do like an Instagram post, but check our stories. and they would sell out by Wednesday, and they limited their supply, and they knew just how much they had to buy, and they would say like, this is all you get, and people didn't custom. They'd show up at a coffee shop and pick them up. It was fucking genius.
Yeah, it's awesome. But again, since you can't bake, I mean, first off, making bagels in your house is a huge pain in the ass,
Yeah.
especially the way I do it. But since you can't sell out of your house in New Jersey, is like,
Well, no, they would sell it. No, they would go at a pop-up at a coffee shop and sell it there. That's like, okay, this Saturday we'll be here at these times for you to pick them up.
Yep, that's what I did. My first pop-up, I baked and did everything in this woman's pop-up, and that's what started the whole thing.
I just like love it. I think I love the entrepreneur stuff, and I'm gonna jump back into it, but I think it relates to this because it's all about just it is that DIY ethic,
Yeah.
like just do that shit for yourself. And I think there's a punk rock vibe to people doing this stuff. So when I see you doing the bagel thing, I'm like, man, he's keeping a fucking punk rock, man. He's just like,
yeah, dude. The only difference, like I bought stickers and I literally taped them in a Ziploc bag to the front of the store and put free, take one, and just told people to go to the shop and take a sticker and put it on something cool that belonged to them. And like really the only difference is I just ordered t-shirts and now I'm just ordering more larges and extra larges versus, youth mediums and smalls.
I know.
It's the same thing. We're just got older.
I know. It's like everyone's like, we really love craft beer. I'm like, lots of XLs and Ls. I'm like, yep, same here. I totally understand. So going back, like, how did you guys officially disband?
We were doing it's a bit of a long story, but
that's fine.
When we were going to put out our second record, everything was changing. Digital was what was happening. And we're like, we're not making money off selling CDs. We're buying the CDs from Drive-Thru to sell on the road. And we're kind of like, it'd be really good just to own everything of our own. So we asked Drive-Thru if we could do a 360 deal, which was where they would get, merchandise and a piece of everything, basically booking, merchandise, management, because we wanted them to have more of a horse in the race so that they would push us more. And they didn't want to do the 360 deal. And then we had asked if we could get off the record label, if we could buy ourselves out. They pretty much had said yes to X amount of terms. And Vinny from Less Than Jake was our manager at the time. Wow. And he was helping us, and he got us like a distro deal through Red. And Red was literally giving us more marketing money than our budget was going to be for like recording the second record. And we were going to put it out ourselves in the U.S. We were on our way to the U.K. to play with this band, You Me at Six, who was doing awesome and still does really, really well, and awesome guys out there, and come over here. And I do suggest checking them out. So we were going to meet with record labels over there. The Japanese label that worked with Drive-Thru was going to put our stuff out. We had an Australian label. So we had all this stuff pretty much set up. And then from what I remember, Drive-Thru was basically like, we don't want to give you away now. And that was kind of my downward spiral. Like Mark Hoppus wanted to produce our record, gave us an awesome price on it. They said no. And I started to just get jaded. And I remember we went to do this tour that was a short tour, 2 weeks maybe. And I'm sitting outside the venue at the first show. I think we were the TLA in Philly. I'm just sitting in the van, and Tom Keiger walks up to me. He's like, "You're done, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And I didn't want to tour anymore. The only reason I wanted to be in the band was because I wanted to go on tour. I would see Less Than Jake at Hunka Bunka Ballroom and see this gnarly bus outside. I'm like, those dudes are getting to play music and party all night, and I have high school tomorrow morning. I want to go on tour. And I was at a point, I'm like, I don't want to go on tour. I'm jaded. I'm done. And so I left on good terms. Then some other stuff happened that I won't go into, but another member...
Boo. I'm just kidding.
Well, everyone was cool. Something happened, and so another member, Jose, was out 2 weeks later. And I actually said to myself, I was like, thank God I left when I did, because I never would have been able to leave if I waited 2 weeks, because it just I would have broken. It felt like I was breaking up the band. And they went on for another 6 months or so. I helped tour manage, and I didn't go out on tour, but I helped manage different things at the time when I was gone, and I was told to butt out. So I said, fine. I was just trying to help. I wasn't taking money. I was just I didn't want to break the band up. I wanted it to succeed. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so they did. And I left. There was another Australia tour that was basically Australia's Warped Tour called Soundwave Festival that we were booked for, that I was supposed to go on. And I left before that. I knew I had that, and I left. That's how bad I didn't want to be in the band anymore.
Damn.
So, and within 6 months, it was over.
And what year was this again when you left?
I left, I think it was December of 2009 or 2008.
Okay. Yeah, because I was looking at the Wikipedia. Wikipedia page, and it was saying, because I was reading through it, and it was like past members, and I thought you had stayed on till the end, but it said that it was just Tom, Oki, and Josh.
They were the only original members when it was done. We all still played the final show.
Where was that?
Which was cool, but yeah, I was out I think it was about 6 months they went on.
Where was the final show at?
School of Rock.
Okay. How was that?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Really, really fun. Really good way to end. Really cool.
Did you feel when it was over that you kind of lost yourself for a minute?
No, because I was starting to get into video production, and I was working on commercials in New York as a production assistant, and I started growing really, really quickly with it, and I loved it, and I just wanted to become a director. And I was an assistant director before I came in when people had been PAs for a few years, and I was already assistant director while they were still production assistants. So I saw something else happening for me. I was like, this was great. It was an amazing run, but I'm on to something different here.
See, I'm jealous of that. I mean, not jealous. I guess, well, in a light way jealous, because when we broke up, I mean, I remember just feeling, and we did not do the amount of touring that you guys did to play those amazing shows. And even from a small perspective, I was like, I don't know what the fuck I want to do. And then just happened to stumble upon graphic design. And I was like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, I figured it out. And I feel that some bands don't get that if they don't, like, there's that depression afterwards, because they're like, well, this is my identity. This is how I'm known. And now that I don't have that, they're like, well, what the fuck am I going to do? But they don't try to figure out the next move. It sounds like you were kind of set up either way, from just the way you've constantly, from what I've seen from listening to your story, that you're good at figuring out the next step, or like, how to make it happen.
We were, when we were we were writing that record for the second record for so long, and we weren't really touring because the other record was just old. There wasn't anything to really tour off of. So you had to make money. And my buddy's like, you should become a production assistant. I go, cool. What's that? He goes, you will work in the city on commercials. You make $200 a day. I go, cool. What do I do? He's like, whatever they tell you to do. Empty trash cans, go get the director coffee, whatever. And I was like, $200 a day? That's like $1 million at that point. So I took it. And so, yeah, I had somewhere to go, right? There'd be no reason. Like, I've never understood where it's like, if the band doesn't do this by this time, then I'm out. Okay, well, why? Do you have something else that's there for you?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, I mean, I get the dragging a dead horse, and it's sad, but why put an ultimatum if there's nothing at least there? That doesn't make sense to me.
Interesting.
So I had something there that was worth sticking around for, and ended up being a very important part of my life with video production.
Do you make, you had said something earlier, and I can cut this out, but you had mentioned something about your drummer from Face First just making money off of royalties?
The original drummer.
Off of what royalties?
So when we when we were going to leave for we graduated high school, we had bought a small school bus, and we were going to go play this tour that I booked. And we were putting a new engine in the school bus, and that goes is exactly how you planned. So we miss our first two shows. We literally have 3 shows booked in Illinois, and then I think we have like 2 or 3 shows booked in LA, and then I think 1 show in Arizona. And like, that's the whole tour. And we missed the first 2 shows in Illinois because of the bus. And then Scott, our saxophone player, his parents were so excited to get rid of him for a week or 2 that they're like, take our minivan. We're like, we can't fit the gear. They're like, put a hitch on it, get a trailer, get out of here. And the night that we were leaving, the original drummer came over. He's like, guys, I've got this contract. I'm working with this publishing company. They're going to get us on like all these MTV shows, yada, yada, just sign here, 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 and here. And we did. And what we didn't realize was they basically said that he was the sole songwriter. Like, he was the majority songwriter and everything, which was complete and utter bullshit. And I think like even to this day, if you go to iTunes, hold on, let's go to the tape.
Wow.
Oh, they actually changed. So it used to say Face First featuring Ian Bronstein, because that was the drummer's name. Now it actually just says Face First, but you can see it says ACM Records on there. That was on Decibel Records. I put that record out.
Wait a minute. So wait, he's making money, or he makes royalties off Face First?
This was Face First.
Oh, okay. I thought that he had got money off of Houston Calls.
No. This was the very first record for Face First. This is basically there's not much to it. It's not important, but it was shitty. It was shitty when you were a punk band, and everyone was doing what they could, and he had to go off to college, and he couldn't continue with it, and he had to sign something that was complete and utter bullshit.
That's a dick move. Have you ran into him since that time?
There have been some emails back and forth. He's like, I want to PayPal you X amount of dollars to settle this. And I'm like, it's not about the money. It's about the fact that you were a piece of shit. And so is these people at ACM Records. And you guys are just like scumbags. And we were busting our, like, they got, back in the day, mp3.com paid you, if you recall, right?
We did not get to that point, so I have no clue.
Yeah, so we would make like $400 or $500 off mp3.com, and we're like, that could be a van payment.
Holy shit.
And then they were like, no, we own your music. They contacted mp3.com when we were leaving for a tour, and our mp3.com page got taken down because they said we were stealing. So, like, on paper, the contract was probably right that we were wrong, that it was their money. Granted, the contract never actually – they were supposed to give us a check for $1 that said we agreed to the contract, and they never actually did that. So if we were to ever go back, we could say this contract wasn't legitimate because it's not, and they know that, and I've called them out on that. But the point was, it was like the big guys hitting like this young band when you're like, I thought you guys were here to help us.
Yeah.
So fuck you.
I mean, but when this person emailed you, the person who was in the band, did they say like, dude, it was a dick move, I'm sorry, like, how can I PayPal you?
I don't think he fully took responsibility. I think he was like, I was young and misunderstood it too. And I was just like, you're an asshole.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I think I'm just going to say this just for my own, just to say it, but I definitely have talked many times about stupid fucking shit moves that I made as a kid. And like, as an adult, you have a different perspective. You're like, wow, that was really stupid. I didn't really know. So maybe find a place in your heart, if so, to say like, all right, I let it go. But if not, that's totally fine. I just know.
I hear you. I mean, I'm good. Like I don't. It doesn't keep me up. I've got plenty of.
This is the first time you've thought about it in like a long time. You're like, okay, I'll forget about it in 5 seconds when we're done. But
yeah, no, just because we brought up face first is not something I typically think about. So
yeah, I think I've said this multiple times where if I had a ton of money and I knew what we potentially took from Matt from Red Leader, which I don't think was that much, I would be like, here you go. I'll just like, here's the fucking money, just to save face. But it's, okay, I'll just move on from there.
Yeah,
but.
no, I think if I like that brings me like up to thinking about like my biggest regret music wise. And I think it was just that we were all such pussies that we didn't say things to each other. We said it to other people in the band. So it's like you'd get off stage and be like, so-and-so sucked tonight. He drank too much and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I totally noticed that. But we never said it to so-and-so.
Yeah.
We said it to each other. And I feel like being older, obviously, you learn how to deal with things better. And you're also not stuck in a van on tour for 2 months, barely getting by and, yada, yada. So I just wish we would have been. I feel like Houston Calls could have been more successful if we opened our mouths a bit more and were more truthful about things in a way of this is how this is the problem, but hey, we're no longer going to drink before the show, which like that one we'd started doing. Like it was like, okay, it's a 2-drink minimum before the show.
Yeah.
You put those rules in place.
Well, I think you also have to have that upfront contract with people and say, like, look, if we're going to move forward with this, I think that if there are young people listening to this podcast, they can really learn so many lessons from a lot of bands that I've interviewed. But have that conversation up front. It should have been, all right, we're doing this. We need to treat this like a business, but yes, it should be fun. But here's the rules. Like, we need to be able to say, we need to be able to check in at least once a week or once after the show, talk about what we should change, and not get fucking sensitive about it, and make those adjustments because it's for the good of us doing this. I think if you have that, it sets it up so you can call that out later and be like, hey, like, you need to do this. So, like, what the fuck? You're like, hey, we established that we could say this.
Yeah.
Is that fine?
Well,
fine.
Expectations are what starts fights anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, expectations are what starts fights in a marriage, right? Like,
yep.
I expected you to pick up your socks off the ground. Well, why don't you just tell me, hey, I don't like your stuff on the ground, and I'll pick it up. Right? So, like, my wife and I have one expectation that I always share, which is I take the trash out, she replaces the bag. The expectation is that we have an expectation the last one to get out of bed makes the bed. You know who never fights about making the bed? My wife and I.
Yeah, see,
right?
but that's also the thing too. And some people think like, oh, but that sounds too businessy. But like, I've heard of people doing that with relationships like that. Where I listen to this guy Noah Kagan. He's like big entrepreneur dude. He's super cool, and he'll talk about his podcast about him and his girlfriend. They like wrote just kind of different rules about things and it sounds like I said too structured, but it does help. At least it's there to say, all right, like, Because I think when you have that, you have a real conversation. Again, this applies to bands, applies to anything. If you have a real conversation and you have those expectations, you set them up front, then you're not living in this limbo of like, why are you always mad about this? Or like, well, I'm just going to just ignore this. And then 3 years later, it's this explosion. You're going, oh, I didn't know that was such a big deal. It's like if we just said from the beginning, these are the small things that need to happen. This is what I like, and we could change and tweak along the way. But at least we have an also understanding and know each other better.
Absolutely.
And that's
And
how
yes,
you
it goes
find
the
out about
same way in the
people.
band. I remember like there was like a wardrobe thing that we wanted to have like a certain basic look on stage. So we just set the expectation you wear a black shirt or whatever it was going to be for that tour.
Yeah.
So that way you didn't have to fight to say, hey, why is so and so wearing this? And then like Josh, our drummer, I remember at one point because we were doing like on the Australia tour, we were wearing button up black shirts and we wore a tie that was the color of our instrument on the record for A Collection of Short Stories. Because if you know the record, the artwork on it was like there was a yellow snare drum, so Josh would wear a yellow tie, etc.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the show, we'd throw the ties into the crowd because it was such a huge crowd, and we got to be rock stars for that tour. And I remember Josh was like, "Well, that's too much for me to drum, and it's too hot. Can I wear a short sleeve dress shirt?" And we're like, "Yes." Like we set the expectation. It doesn't work here, and now everything's fine, right? So like, and yeah, bands can learn from that. Overnight drives. What's the expectation? A full tank of gas. Okay, got it. That's because sometimes the 2 hours actually somehow became a fight because you're like, wow, he really drove into the rest stop exactly at 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you just had to figure shit out. And I feel like if we were more vocal, and as you said, if we didn't take shit personally, like I didn't play bass on our second record because I wasn't prepared for it. And I sucked at bass, and Jose was able to knock out the bass in like probably 4 hours for the whole record. And I sucked it up and I said, he's a better bassist. It's going to give us more time for everything else. Do it. Like it hurt my pride a little bit, but it made sense.
Yeah, that's a big move, man. I mean, that's a pretty adult way to agree with that from back then. I would have been like, fuck that.
Yeah, no, I took it, and like it wasn't easy. It wasn't like I was like, yeah, do. But like I wasn't prepared. I was working while they were writing a lot of that record. I'd come in and say, oh, that part's cool, or maybe try and do this here. But like I wasn't an intricate part of writing that record, so I wasn't practicing those songs. And then we went on tour for 2 months and went to then go to record, and I'm like, I don't even fucking know these songs.
Yeah, it kind of backfired then.
Which was actually, but I'll tell you what was good about it was it gave me a different perspective on it.
Yeah.
So I actually felt like when we got into the studio, I was able to go like, I think that would be better with this because it was kind of new to me, opposed to them who were playing it the whole time. So yeah, it was an adult way to look at it, I guess.
I'm impressed, man. This is
Jose's a fucking gnarly bassist too, so.
That's I mean, yeah, you got to think too that the majority of people that listen to albums, there's probably a small percentage who see. There's a lot of bands that I've listened to I've never seen live, so I couldn't. And when I'm usually seeing them live, I'm probably having a few drinks, so I'm just seeing on stage. I'm like, woo, and they could be fucking up, or it's not exactly the same. I'm like, I don't give a shit, because the 99% of the time I'm gonna listen to your music is gonna be on Spotify, or mostly now it's on Spotify. So I'm gonna hear that over and over again. So if that was a giant piece of shit, then I'd be bummed out. But it's like, sure, overproduce the fuck out of this. Have someone else like, I don't give a fuck. Like I just want to hear the song. If I see you live, I'm like, all right, hopefully you're not, it's not that bad, but it's I can get through it.
I hear you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I would just go see Jimmy at World Live and Less Than Jake, and they're both always amazing. So
yeah, Jimmy at World. Last time a friend of mine just they're playing in Asheville in November. My friend down here was a huge fan of them. Like she was like a huge punk I'd say punk girl. I'll probably get like shit for that. She was big into the punk scene back when we were, and we just became friends down here because we kept talking about all these bands. So she's like huge poppy. She's like, oh my god, Jimmy World's playing down here. I bought tickets. I'm so excited. And she kind of apologized. She's like, I know this is lame, but I bought Jimmy World tickets. I'm like, I would go see them. I mean, hopefully
not lame at all, dude.
Yeah.
I'd say that I've seen Less Than Jake and Jimmy World probably the most out of any bands.
I would see. I mean, Jimmy World. I haven't liked anything that they've done. I like the song Dizzy that was on the record after Futures, and after
Dizzy's
that,
a great song.
Yeah, Dizzy's a fantastic song. Any albums past that, I'm like, no, because I think Futures, even then I was kind of like dipping out of it, and then that record after with Dizzy, I was like, all right, Dizzy's a great song, but I just like lost touch. But I mean, I have a huge place in my heart for Jimmy Eat Worlds for forever, so I would like to see them play again if they were to not play a lot of new shit.
They mix it up every time I've seen them, and I've only been disappointed at one show, and I put it more on the venue than I do on them because I've seen them live so many times, and they're just so tight and so amazing. And God, I fucking love that band.
Yeah, I saw
Actually,
Death
I was gonna
Cab,
buy.
yeah.
It's funny. I was gonna go buy. They're playing at Starland, and I was gonna buy tickets, and I went on, and I was like, do, and I was like, shit, dude. I'm like, you may have a bagel shop open by that day. You can't fucking go to the show.
Oh, yeah, now it's starting to settle in. Like, wait a minute, I have to be somewhere all the time.
Yeah. Oh, bagels at
Interesting.
4 a.m. on Sunday. I'm not going to a show.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You're like, I didn't really think that one through. Now I have to pay rent. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up, and
Awesome.
I think I've covered everything. Yeah, I have covered everything. So, okay. So, I mean, I'm guessing what you're gonna plug, but what would you like to plug before I ask my last question?
I mean, I'm not much of a plugger. I mean, for the bands, obviously there's customtourpasses.com, but I would plug listening to this more if you're a younger band and hopefully learning and taking something from it. Besides how to get health insurance through college, because I don't know if it works that way anymore. But if you want something done, do it. Sometimes you gotta just fucking do it yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes you're also not cut out for things. I thought I was going to be a rock star. I thought I was going to be a famous commercial director. Now I think I'm going to be a famous bagel maker. So, we'll see what happens. But stick to your fucking guns and your roots. Like, I'm treating this bagel shop very punk rock. I'm doing it the way I want to do it. And, it's like a band. You get your friends are the first ones who come to see you. So my friends are the first ones to support my bagels. And then they tell their friends because the bagel's that good. So I'm growing the thing like I grew a band.
That's awesome.
I'm treating it the same way.
So, is that your scene ethics then that you hold on to?
Yeah.
Because it kind of went from plugging to like, this is my ethics of how I, kept the scene alive in myself, in my heart.
Yeah, well, and supporting other people, right? So, like, I just dropped off stickers at the bakery who let me do my first pop-up so that I could post about it so that people would go into her bakery and buy a cupcake and a cup of coffee yesterday because they wanted to grab a free sticker of mine. So that's you supporting the other band.
That's great. I love that idea. God, you're a good man, Jarrett.
I do what I can.